Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Harry Fling Wrestling. I am your host, Harry Fling, and as you can see, we are still in the midst of Royal Rumble season, and you know what that means. It's time to rewrite another Royal Rumble. And what year will we be tackling this time? Well, this is the 2015 Royal Rumble that we'll be rewriting, and by many accounts, I should say, a lot of people would say this is actually one of the shittiest, worst Royal Rumbles ever. And that was largely due to the fact that Roman Reigns was on a super Cena type push at the time. Vince McMahon was very high on the big dog, one versus all, the needle mover, greatness on a different level, whatever the hell you want to call him. And, he was the type of guy who was jacked with muscles and had a good look and everything. Roman wasn't quite ready for the main event scene. He was still a little green coming off the heels of the Shield because he was known as the quiet muscle while Ambrose and Rollins did the majority of the talking. And they were a little bit, but he had a good athletic background, playing college football, so that translated well to the ring. So Roman Reigns, I always loved Roman and still do to this day. I think he's, he might not be, there might be people that say he might not be on the level of like a John Cena, but after John Cena, I think he's like the next biggest star we have in this company. Otherwise, why would they have given him the world title for 4 consecutive years, right? They did that with Hogan, and Hogan's, one of the greatest of all time. Maybe not in my opinion, but the opinion of others, the majority. So, in any event, let's talk about what would I rewrite here as far as rebooking some of the matches and the Royal Rumble in general. And let me set the stage. A year prior, we were still heavily engaged in the Yes movement of Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan became a world champion the previous WrestleMania, and although he wasn't in the Royal Rumble match, and that irked the ire of the fan base at the time, and they booed Batista, and Roman actually got cheered because he was the runner-up that year, and Roman was still heavily involved in the Shield, so at that point he was even more so nowhere near ready for a world championship run. So let's get started. We're going to go in order of, like I've been doing the previous videos, of how I would present the card, the order in which the matches would take place on the show. So the first match here, I would actually keep relatively the same, but I have some complaints here. The New Age Outlaws versus the Ascension. The Ascension, that's Connor and Victor. You might remember Connor O'Brien from NXT Season 4, played a rat-type character. Then he joined up, he went back to FCW, which NXT was at the time, and there was a stable called the Ascension with Connor O'Brien, this dude, Kenneth Cameron, Ricardo Rodriguez, Christina Crawford, who's Alicia Fox's younger sister. She was a contestant on Tough Enough 5, the 2011 Steve Austin version, and one other, I think Raquel Diaz, Shaul Guerrero. So that was the original group, and it was nowhere near as cryptic as it would later become. The Ascension became sort of a play over time on a parody of like the Legion of Doom, Road Warriors, Demolition, the Powers of Pain, all these tag teams. They were big, husky-looking guys, not really husky, but really well-built guys with impressive physiques to boot. Face paint, different corners of their face. They wore like shoulder tackle pads, like football shoulder guards, or whatever the hell you want to call them. And when LOD was wearing them, they were called spikes. And they had that look of a Road Warrior-esque type personality, and it's been copied to death since then. The Ascension really had a great rise, no pun intended, rise Ascension, in NXT, and they were the longest reigning NXT Tag Team Champions for a whopping 364 days, so close, one day shy of a full year, a full calendar year. And they dominated every tag team that was put in front of them. They had one of the coolest entrances. They would rise up from the ground. There would be a lift underneath the ramp, and they'd come up like this. It's the Ascension. I kind of look like Rick Victor of the Ascension a little bit if I were to pull my hair back even more and slick it back and then put it in a nice ponytail. So you had Connor and Victor. Their names were shortened. We took out the O'Brien and the Rick. That was Vince McMahon's deal. I didn't like when he was constantly doing that with talent, except for guys like Rusev and Cesaro, because those names have a nice ring to them, just as mononyms, but didn't need to do it with everyone. Like Austin Theory became Theory, Mustafa Ali became Ali. It was so stupid. But anyways, let's not get off the point. The Ascension won this match that night. I'd have them go over the New Age Outlaws because the week prior it was like a Raw reunion, which they did a lot in the years coming off, Raw's 10th anniversary, 15th anniversary. They did one for the 20th. And then every year was always a special Legends night because January is the anniversary year for Monday Night Raw, as we're currently in now. So DX came out, all the members, even though they weren't Hall of Famers yet. You had Triple H, Shawn Michaels, X-Pac, Road Dogg, Mr. Ass. And then they had some kind of altercation with the Ascension. I don't remember it too well, but they started comparing them to the real Road Warriors on TV, which in and of itself killed the gimmick. It killed any and all credibility that this tag team built up in NXT. Oh, they're just fake copies of a more popular tag team that's already stood the test of time. So who cares about these guys? I never liked the Ascension's booking on the main roster from day one. See, they were protected by Triple H in NXT at the time in 2014, but come 2015, they make it to the main roster. They're under Vince's watch. Vince doesn't protect tag teams like that. In fact, he never really liked tag teams. That's why you saw so few of them. They were just few and far between, past the Ruthless Aggression era. I like that they're coming back a little bit more now, but they're not doing a great job. In my opinion, they could do better. So anyways, the Outlaws, Road Dogg, Mr. Ass, they would lose to Connor and Victor, the Ascension, and it would just be a quick little 5-minute match. But I wouldn't have them be compared to another team. You can't compare a superstar, let alone a tag team, to something that they're supposed to be playing off of. And it's okay that they played off the Road Warriors, but don't outright say it and don't outright degrade them right then and there because, you want this to be the next great tag team, but now they have, they're going to constantly be in the shadow of other teams that were aforementioned, Legion of Doom, Demolition, Powers of Pain. So there's a certain credibility you have to give to a superstar or team, and this is the announcer's job, and they botched it badly. And maybe it's not completely their fault. Vince was in their ear all the time, and so Vince McMahon really fucked them over here right from the get-go. And then Ascension just continued to job from there on in, and I think they got released like 2019 or something, so it was a very uneventful 4 years on the main roster. So that'd be the first match. The next match I'd make for the Intercontinental Championship, which actually did not happen in real time. At the time was Bad News Barrett as the Intercontinental Champion. He'd be defending against Dean Ambrose, the Lunatic Fringe. Oof. Jon Moxley. I never got into Jonathan Good as a wrestler, whether he was Jon Moxley or Dean Ambrose. Bad News Barrett, Wade Barrett, always loved him. King Barrett, didn't care for so much. But I'd have Barrett go over in this one and kind of have a long-standing feud between these two. They had a real bad garbage match at Fastlane in 2015, I remember. They were part of that Intercontinental Championship ladder match. There was a chase going on in the weeks leading up to it, which was so childish because it involved the 7 competitors in the match stealing the belt, even though they weren't the rightful champion. Barrett was. That's a childish storyline, stealing the belt. You could do so much better than that. It's just lazy booking, if you ask me. Crappy booking. So anyways, Dean Ambrose, he did great in the beginning with the Shield, but he has a shelf life. He has a gimmick that doesn't necessarily have a lot of upward mobility. It's not something where he can constantly reinvent himself. See, Seth Rollins could reinvent himself. We'll get to him in a little bit later on in this video, but at least he was able to, he goes from one gimmick, which was great. It was fresh and interesting. He was like the architect at the time. And then he goes into this Jesus Christ-like character during the COVID pandemic and eventually leads to the visionary. But he evolved over time. He didn't stay the same. Ambrose just stayed the same whether he was heel or face. He was just this crazy guy, constantly pulling his hair out and, attacking people left and right. And a lot of times the booking didn't make sense. The matches usually sucked because of the pacing. This was just the mid to late 2010s was one of the worst times in WWE. It's hard for me to even go back and rewatch it and look at it in a positive light. Oh, this was bad. So, Dean Ambrose, yeah, I tried to get into him, but after a while, my fandom just sort of faded. Even Mitch the Plant, remember that joke from his feud with Jericho in the spring of 2016 in the Steel Asylum match? No, not Steel Asylum, the Ambrose Asylum match that they had Extreme Rules that year. He had a plant and he named it Mitch. It was just a crazy little thing. Sometimes, WWE has a history of their wrestlers in their gimmicks naming inanimate objects they carry to the ring. Al Snow's head, just head. Whatever. But anyways, I'd have Barrett go over in this one, the Bullhammer elbow. But then Ambrose would probably do like a post-match beatdown or something, so I wouldn't have this match end in a schmoz. The match at Fastlane did. So maybe I don't know if we should keep the Fastlane one, or eventually I'm going to want to rewrite WrestleMania 31. Might not be this year, but we'll see. So we'll leave it at that. Next match for the United States Championship, which also did not happen in real time, which, by the way, the competitors, all 4 competitors from the Intercontinental U.S. bouts will be in the Royal Rumble later, just because the talent pool was still really thin at this time. So we need to fill it out. We need extra bodies. All hands on deck. United States Championship, Rusev, the champion at the time, will be defending against Ryback, and he'll successfully retain, because it was a nice build-up going into the John Cena feud, as much as I hated him losing to Cena. But anyways, this isn't about Cena right now. Rusev was a great character. It reminded me of something straight out of the late 80s. They don't do as much with the gimmicks as far as representing another country is concerned, an international gimmick. And we don't want it to become a whole race card thing, so they try to downplay that a little bit. But he did carry a Russian flag, even though he is Bulgarian, and he had Lana with him. Lana, CJ Perry in real life can speak perfect English, but here she's supposed to speak Russian or some broken English combination. And so I always liked the introduction when Lana would come out first, speak in her native tongue, so to speak, and introduce Rusev. And then Rusev would come out with the flag, put it on the pole. He'd wear his gold star, the Gold Star Medal Award winner. And I love the accolade. It was a nice camel clutch. Oh, yes, the accolade. Rusev Crush. I'm glad he's back now, but they haven't done shit with him. Other than maybe a first round match in the John Cena's Last Time Is Now farewell tour tournament. Haven't seen much of Rusev since then. So anyways, Rusev was a powerhouse. He was unstoppable, undefeated for so long, and Ryback would just be another roadblock for him to overcome. And Ryback, that's another gimmick. Much like Ambrose, they had a lot of gimmicks with no upward mobility. Ryback's gimmick was that he destroyed people, and it kind of plays off the real-life Ryan Reeves. Ryan Reeves was somebody who was always constantly eating. He was in magnificent shape, but he always had to be seen snacking on something or eating a full-course meal. And that's why his slogan was, his catchphrase was, "Feed me more." He was like a feeding machine. He was like a machine that likes to eat people or something. I don't know. And Ryback was a name that was given to him, I think, in like high school or college on the gridiron, because he was a football player and he might have been a quarterback or running back, so they called him the Ryback because his real name's Ryan Reeves. Go play on the Ryback. So anyways, yeah, Ryback would lose this one. He was trying to reinvent himself coming off Rybaxel. That was actually a funny comedy tag team with Curtis Axel. I wish they'd kept that going a little bit longer, but then they turned him face again, and it wasn't the same as the first run. Especially he got crushed in the beginning by CM Punk and that stupid Brad Maddox. Hell in a Cell 2012 main event. That really killed the momentum. As much as I love Punk, Ryback was not ready yet, very green. And then they turned him heel after losing to Mark Henry clean at WrestleMania, so Ryback's stock had really fallen. Then he lost to Cena 2 pay-per-views in a row. His stock really fell even before that, but still, as a heel, he was doing fine. He did this one funny thing where he bullied some crew member working backstage into the shower. "Get in the shower. Turn it on. Turn it off. Open that bag. Get it wet." Brought a gym bag in there, and he forced him to pour cold water in it and toss it on the poor guy. Oh my God. It was kind of hilarious just because of how angry he got, but that was the whole gimmick. He was supposed to be a bully as a heel, but then after Rybaxel, they turned that back around, and now we're supposed to cheer for him again. So Ryback, yeah, he fell flat. There's no upward mobility, and he does a lot of shoot interviews where he complains that he doesn't get the proper push. Well, your push is only dictated by your character development in most cases, as it should be. And there's really not a whole lot there. And he wasn't great on promos. He was like Goldberg, essentially. Goldberg, on the other hand, he has a little more stock in him just because he was booked better at a time when wrestling was, more popular. But I'm not the biggest Goldberg fan either, so there isn't really much more I can say about this. All right, next match would be for the Divas Championship, right before the movement of Give Divas a Chance. And I thank the Bella Twins for doing that, because now we got some awesome matches with the women on the main roster, which more often than not outshine the men, I'm happy to say. Nikki Bella, the longest reigning Divas champion of all time, would be defending against Natalya. Oh, we got a war here from Total Divas. Yes, Total Divas was still airing on the E network at the time. And I would not make Nikki Bella the longest reigning Divas champion of all time. She might have been the poster child for that reality show, but in the ring, she was subpar. She was good, but not that great. Brie was okay too. they started out as models, but they got better, but they weren't all that great. They're no Becky Lynch, they're no Charlotte Flair, they're no Bayley, they're no Sasha Banks, whatever. They didn't have the NXT at the time, so they had to squander an FCW and just barely get by in the main roster in these 2-3 minute matches. I'd actually have Natalya go over. She was a former Divas champion. I was there in Miami when she beat Lay Cool for the belt. And I'd have her win this one and just give her, a phantom run at the very least, and Nikki could win it right back. And Natalya needs a little more vindication because she's a real locker room leader with the women, and she takes them under their wing, even if she doesn't want to. She always does what she's told. She's a company lady, and I think she's coming up on a retirement soon, either this year, and if not this year, then next year. So she doesn't have a lot of gold to her resume. A women's tag title, SmackDown Women's Champion, and a Divas Champion. She should have done a lot more. They should have used her better. I guess they were still looking for the Model S type women. But again, it shouldn't have been about looks in the beginning, but that's a whole nother discussion for another day. So Natalya, I'd have her go over with the sharpshooter. Brie might try. No, I wouldn't have Brie involved in this at all. They really botched that one. Brie and Nikki were supposed to be feuding, which they did at Hell in a Cell, and then the stipulation was that Brie lost, so she had to be Nikki's personal assistant. And the personal assistant turned right back into a sisterhood all over again, where they're getting along. So, yeah, so much screwy booking around this time. It was kind of annoying to watch, but as a diehard fan, I follow through and hope for the best. And there were some bright spots here and there, but, this could have been brighter if Natalya had won, and she would have had, like, Naomi by her side or something. That actually would have been good. Or Paige. Yeah, Paige was on the show a lot at the time. AJ Lee, maybe. AJ was kind of on her way out. So that's that. And then one more match before we get to the Royal Rumble. The WWE Championship, which I'd keep exactly the same because that was actually match of the night. That was a great match. A triple threat match. Brock Lesnar versus John Cena versus Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins was Mr. Money in the Bank at this time. So only thing I'd do differently is Rollins would actually cash it in. Yeah, he'd be unusual as a heel that actually wants to cash it in. He'd do it a week before, because let's say he loses a qualifying match, like to Roman Reigns or somebody like that who's going to be featured in the Rumble, or Dean Ambrose, and all of a sudden he announces, okay, I'm cashing it in. But as a heel, Edge would have never given notice, or any other heel for that matter. But Rollins will do something different, join in the match, and only give a week's notice. So it was an intense battle, as I remember, a lot of F5s, from Brock to Cena, and Rollins doing a lot of curb stomps. Rollins would bring out the athletic side, and you'd have a lot of brute force and strength coming from Lesnar and Cena, respectively. Paul Heyman would get involved with some shenanigans here and there. And I would definitely have Rollins actually go out as the winner on this one, just because he definitely deserved it at that time. He was probably the most primed member of the Shield to win it. Now, in the Shield, he was kind of, he was kind of the lesser known member, so to speak, or the way they would depict it. Dean Ambrose was kind of the unofficial leader, did all the talking. Roman was the quiet muscle and the strength behind the group. Rollins was sort of just there. He just kind of balanced it out any which way he could. But here he's his own man, the architect, and he's a full-fledged member of the Authority, and this was an amazing run, and he was a great champion that year. So I truly believe 2015 belonged to Seth Rollins. So he would be the man going to WrestleMania here, while Lesnar would not be, but he'd be in WrestleMania in a different capacity. But we're going to save that for another time because we need to get into the Royal Rumble match. This match was abysmal in real time. Daniel Bryan was eliminated early on, and he was the crowd favorite to win. I actually wanted Bryan to continue on the Yes movement and Occupy Raw, whatever, and he didn't. So he comes in the 10th position. And he gets eliminated early on after number 15, Rusev at the time, comes in. And, the Rumble was just complete shit afterwards. Nobody wanted any piece of it, any part of it after. The first half was fine, but the rest of it was shitty. Nobody cared. They're just booing, chanting Daniel Bryan. Guys like Ambrose, maybe Cesaro and Ziggler got little cheers just because they were the type of small guys they wanted to win the Rumble that year. Well, it was flooded with Big Show and Kane, who were way past their prime. Corporate Kane was funny as a character in the ring. Oh, he should have hung it up a long time ago. Big Show, Paul White. Glad he's not in WWE, but he will not retire. AEW, he's been there for a while. I don't know what he's doing now. Still respect him as an athlete, but You gotta know when to hang it up for your own health's sake. Don't stay in this business too long. That's my advice. And I've never been in the wrestling business, but having watched and seen various events that have taken place as far as, the lifestyle of wrestling is concerned, don't stay in it too long. You'll understand why. So, at number 1, I would have Fandango, excuse me, Fandango enter at number 1. And at this point in time, he had altered his gimmick slightly. He's now being managed by the lovely Rosa Mendez, and he's changed his dance style from a sort of tango to a flamenco style. So he comes out, it reminds me of something straight out of the movie Once Upon a Time in Mexico. Come out to that little tune there. He'd run to the ring. No, Rosa would come out, and she'd be all dressed in her, fluffy, poofy dress or whatever. Have a rose in her ear, because that's her name, Rosa. And Fandango would come running into the ring, and she'd be standing above him, and then they'd be looking at each other kind of in a passionate, loving way. And that was actually a good alteration of the gimmick slightly. Now, it wasn't going to be something that could work long term, and it didn't. I think it ended by the spring of 2015. He went back to doing da-da-da-da-da-da, that whole shtick. But Fandango was an underrated character that deserved better. So he'd be number 1. Number 2, Cesaro. Cesaro was really on the rise. He should have worked as a Paul Heyman guy. Why couldn't Paul Heyman get him over in 2014? It remains a mystery to me. I think Vince McMahon shut that down just like that. Put that, he got turned that push to a screeching halt, so to speak. So, Cesaro deserved better. I would have Cesaro be an Iron Man in this match, go all the way. Number 2, he can do it. Bob Backlund did it in 93. He didn't win the Rumble, but you'll see when you watch it. Number 3 would have Luke Harper, recent Wyatt family member, being on his own now. Followed by number 4, Big E. Forget the Langston, he's just Big E. And Big E would actually be representing the newly formed New Day. Can you believe New Day is going to be, it's 11 years old, it'll be 12 at the end of this year. At the time, they couldn't get their feet off the ground as far as popularity or fan support is concerned. They were gospel singers, and they would be chanting, New Day rocks, and we chant, New Day sucks. Before they got really nostalgic and comedic, I especially love when they all together and they'd ask about a superstar in question in their promo, and they'd say, Who? It was like the new what? It was the new yes. So anyways, Big E would be next, followed by Jack Swagger. Yes, the Patriot, Jack Swagger. And I'd come out to that theme song, da 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 da. We the people. He was getting over, especially with Zeb Coulter by his side. Swagger's a babyface. I didn't think it could actually work, but it did for a short while, especially when he's feuding with Rusev over the U.S. title. Patriotic American taking on an evil foreigner. That whole shtick, been done too many times over. Number 6 would bring our first surprise this match, being Bubba Ray Dudley. After so many years in the company and not being around for so long, he returns, but not only that, makes his first official Royal Rumble appearance. He and Devon always been in tag team title matches for like 4 or 5 years straight, so that's why they were never physically in the Royal Rumble match. And Bubba was number 3 in real time and got eliminated quickly, I think, by like Bray Wyatt. Following Bubba would be Eric Rowan, another ex-Wyatt family member. Rowan had an interesting theme song called Sheep Herder. I'm a banjo guitar player too, so I love the banjo in the background. Something like that. Eric could have done well on his own, and he's doing great. He's fine now. He's back with the Wyatt Six, but the Wyatt Six haven't been pushed enough, so it's hard for me to say how they're actually doing. They're still the tag team champions. Dexter Lumis and Joe Gacy are WWE tag team champions on SmackDown. Next would be Bray Wyatt, the leader of the Wyatt family. We're here. What a great Iron Man performance he had, lasting nearly 45 minutes, coming in at the 5th position in 2015 in real time. But here he'd come in at number 8. He and Cesaro would last very long, outlast all the others that are preceding them. Following Bray Wyatt would be Titus O'Neil. This one won't last too long because Titus does not have great luck in the Royal Rumble. Had to get the dog bark in there. I love Titus O'Neil. So in 2018, in the greatest Royal Rumble from Saudi Arabia, he actually fell underneath the ring, so they call it Titus World Slide instead of Titus Worldwide. He won't last long in this one either. Number 10, and I'd keep this man in the same position, Daniel Bryan. Yes! 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 Daniel, he would actually be the man I'd want to win the Rumble this year. Keep up that momentum. An unfortunate injury, I forget what injured him, what he got, I think it was a neck injury or something, I forget, it's been too long, prevented him from completing his masterful world title run in 2014. What a great dramatic fashion victory he got at WrestleMania 30. He climbed so many obstacles. It was the old-fashioned way of booking where you really were invested in this guy who's tried and tried so hard and finally got his comeuppance. And that was so great about WrestleMania 30 and the ending. And I thought they could do a repeat of it in 2015, but they didn't. So Daniel would outlast everybody here, and he still had the crowd support. So it's like the old saying goes, strike while the iron's hot, and they didn't do it there. So shame on WWE for that. Number 11 would be Devon Dudley, our next surprise. So Bubba would last a little while till Devon came in, maybe do a table spot, like Jack Swagger, Big E, or Luke Harper, somebody, I don't care. And then they get eliminated. Next would be another New Day member with Kofi Kingston. Kofi's been on a roll with his Rumble appearances. Up until that point, he had 3 Rumble moments. One year he did a handstand across the on the outside, across the ring, from one side of the ring to the other, but on the outside. Next year he used JBL's office chair as a pogo stick. Then the year after that, he did a athletic jump from the barricade all the way to the apron of the ring, which was very impressive in of itself. Kofi, he'd have to go for a clever, creative spot here, and I think the best thing for him to do here, probably do the spot with the Rosebuds. Adam Rose will be coming up in this Rumble in a little bit, and in real time they caught him and just brought him back into the ring from one side of the ring to the other. Just to turn the corner, and they brought him right back in. After Kofi, we'd have The Miz, followed by Damien Mizdow. How funny were those two together? That was an underrated tag team, Miz and Mizdow. Miz was getting so arrogant and cocky, as he always does, but even more so because he'd been filming 3 Marines already, the Marine 3, Marine 4, I don't care, something like that. I'd never seen any of them, 5, 6, whatever. Damien Sandow had been floundering in his intellectual savior of the masses gimmick. It had been going on too long. He needed something new to freshen him up, so to speak. And he became Miz's stunt double. Damien Sandow had originally been emulating other superstars up until that time. And then when it came time to emulate The Miz or team with him, Miz just took him on as a stunt double. Anything Miz did, Mizdow did. Not necessarily better, but copied it exactly verbatim. Miz would look this way, Mizdow would look this way. Miz would go over here, Mizdow would go over here. Miz would go like this, Mizdow would go, He copied his each and every move, driving home the whole point of a stunt double. Oh man, they should have had that go a little bit longer than they had it end at WrestleMania 31 in the pre-Andre Giant Memorial Battle Royal on the kickoff. So not a great way to go. Next would be Adam Rose, played by Ray Lepan from South Africa, a good friend of Justin Gabriel's. Justin Gabriel was the bunny, by the way. Adam Rose would come out with his rosebuds, and at this time he was giving off signs of a heel turn, a little tweener action going on, because they caught Kofi, but then he wouldn't be in this match long, because then we'll have that spot again where he's eliminated, but the rosebuds actually fail to catch him because they're too busy rescuing Kofi. So, Adam Rose, yeah, it'd be a quick elimination, but I don't think they should have ever turned him heel. They should have kept that gimmick going, but Kevin Dunn in the production truck had a problem with the gimmick or something. I remember reading about something absurd, and they put the kibosh on it just as soon as it started. So, shame on them. There's so many good gimmicks here that could have actually worked. And it doesn't have to be, the next world champion or the next Steve Austin or Rock, so to speak, but just something to keep us interested. Number 16 would be one half of the WWE Tag Team Champions, Jimmy Uso. Usos actually had a title bout against Mizdow in real time that night, and they retained their titles. But I actually have them in the Rumble this time around. Followed by Roman Reigns. When that Philly crowd comes, get ready. You hear this? Listen, I'm going to imitate what happened that night at the Wells Fargo Arena. Da-da, 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 da-da. As music comes, ooh, not one single person in the Wells Fargo Center that night in Philly cheered for Roman Reigns. I wasn't there, but I remember watching it at home on the WWE Network, and my God, I actually felt bad for the poor guy. And he's got a great attitude. The audience don't have to cheer me. They don't have to cheer me. They pay to come to watch this show, so it's their right to cheer and boo whoever the hell they want. And that is true, yeah. If I was a wrestler, I'd feel the same way. They don't have to like me. They're invested in the character, if anything else. But it's the fact you're pushing a guy to the top who's supposed to be the number one babyface, and he's getting booed like this. That's not a good sign. So that's where there's that disconnect that we talked about earlier. Roman Reigns, after that would be Ryback, pulling double duty tonight. Then would be the next final New Day member, Xavier Woods. This would be his first Royal Rumble match, first Royal Rumble appearance. Xavier was sort of the mouthpiece manager at the time. They would put Kofi and Big E in the tag matches, and Xavier be on the outside, wreaking havoc, blowing into his trombone. Next would be Tyson Kidd in his second Royal Rumble appearance. Tyson's career was cut short by a muscle buster thanks to Samoa Joe in a dark match. I think it was like June of 2015. And he's a producer now, I think in NXT, or he's part of the creative team or something. Tyson Kidd. He works backstage. Yeah, he's got to be a producer. A road agent. Yeah, he's a road agent. Sorry. A lot of the road agents are retired wrestlers. So he's doing that now. But he could have gone to greater heights. Could have been at least the United States or Intercontinental Champion. Just my opinion. He'll forever always be Natty's husband, sadly. Next would be Stardust. Cody Rhodes in the Goldust gimmick. No, you go like this. Goldust would go. Stardust, yes, as if it couldn't get any weirder. Followed by Dean Ambrose, another man pulling double duty. Next would be the other half of the WWE Tag Team Champions at number 23, Jey Uso. A whole great long decade before main event Jey Uso. Following him at 24 will be Rusev, another double duty man. Next would be Curtis Axel, who was actually supposed to be in the Rumble in real time back in 2015, but Eric Rowan attacked him and took his spot, so Axel at the time claimed he was never fully eliminated. So here he'd actually make it to the ring. I don't like when they take people out like that. If they're going to replace him with another guy, that's one thing, and that's fine. But don't leave the Rumble with just 29 competitors. That's dishonest advertisement, and I want to get the full effect of a full-fledged Rumble. That's all. I don't care about substitutions. You can substitute anybody you want. But, yeah, at least put somebody in there. Don't make it empty. Next would be our another surprise entrant, 26. 25 was Curtis Axel. 26 is the Boogeyman. And he's coming to get you in his sole, first and only, his sole Royal Rumble appearance. And the last surprise that evening would be Adrian Neville, former NXT champion. And when he came to the main roster, he was simply known as Neville, the man that gravity forgot. He moved like a cheetah in that ring. He moved up and down every which way, and that red arrow, that devastating, 450 splash-esque finisher, oh, something to behold. Bad News Barrett, again pulling double duty at 28. Neville will be 27. 29 would be Zack Ryder. Just barely able to squeeze himself in there. They weren't doing anything with Ryder at this point in time, but just for him to be in the Rumble is enough to get a great reaction. Should have come later. And finally, rounding out the field would be number 30, Dolph Ziggler. So, yeah, that's a better Rumble than what we actually got. Ziggler was number 30 in real time, as was Daniel Bryan, number 10. So it all boiled down to Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns. Oh, yes, they're going to cheer Bryan heavily and boo Reigns heavily. And at the end, Bryan's going to win. I would think he'd get him out by like a Hurricanrana type elimination or something like that, and the crowd will go wild. We'd have the whole yes thing, and Bryan deserved to have a Royal Rumble victory added to his accolades. So, yeah, it's a shame that it didn't go down that way, and we got what we got, but this would be so much better. So, let me know what your thoughts on this rewriting the 2015 Royal Rumble. And this has been another great edition of Harry Fling Wrestling. I am your host, Harry Fling, and until next time, everybody, bye-bye.